Joining me in studio now is the founder of Mama's Boobie Box, the mum blogger and the writer for boobingit.com, the online magazine. It's Petrina O'Halloran, which must mean we're going to get some very important parental advice. Petrina, good morning to you.
Morning, Alan. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, thanks very much for coming by. And this is a very, very interesting topic, and I'm sure if not every parent, most of them find themselves in this position, even if they don't want to admit it. Favourite child.
Yeah.
So you're going to talk about like parents don't want to have a favourite child. Does that mean then they can't help but have one? Or
yeah, there's research out there that say roughly 70% of parents admit having a favourite child. So I guess we all kind of do it. And I was saying to you off air, like, I think favouritism is kind of the wrong word, to be honest. I think it's more you will lean to a child that obviously you get on with, there's a bit of maybe banter with, that you can flow with, that you can have conversations with, and maybe you have similar interests as well. So therefore you're going to like connect more. And you might have another child that's probably the mirror image of you, and that's usually the child you're going to clash with, probably have arguments with, won't let things go. Maybe you're both really stubborn and they take that from you. And there's just some things that you won't let go. So consciously or subconsciously, we're probably doing it on some level, but I think it's more that you're leaning towards one child. And I think, you know, if you're wondering whether you do it or not, don't worry. The child that feels left out will tell you.
So, like, I mean, we're talking about children. You think, oh, look, they're only small. You know, they're immature. They're not going to notice this. So. Not only will a child who isn't the favourite child notice that you're leaning more towards the other child, but perhaps the child who is the favourite child is aware enough of that connection that they can
manipulate
pull your strings.
Yeah, a little bit. I would say definitely there. And I notice it with my small little girl, like when Granny comes to visit, because she's kind of like Granny's pet. So then if my older girl gets involved in conversations, she's even trying to push her away. You know? So she can see it happening. She's like, I'm protecting this little relationship and you ain't getting involved, you know. So you can see little things happening like that all the time. But I do feel, you know, if you can just, if you're trying to avoid things like this happening and you don't even know that you're doing it, I think it's important to remember there's kind of some phrases you can avoid. So try not to compare your children. That's really, really difficult, especially if you have one that's very outrageous and basically does feel they can do whatever they want around the house. And then maybe you've another child that follows the rules and, you know, is happy to do what mom and dad says. And then there's obviously going to be a lot of clashes there. But you'll end up saying to yourself, your brother or sister doesn't do this. Why are you doing it? You know, and that's a really common phrase, and it's probably because we've inherited it obviously from our previous generation. So if you can try,
it's not our fault.
It's not our fault. It's our parents' fault. It's always our parents' fault. If you can try and avoid comparisons between your children, I think that will go a long way to kind of, you know, evening out your parenting styles, because you know, every child is different and every child has different needs. So you may even feel you're spending more time maybe one-on-one with one child than another, but it's what you're giving to each of the children more so than minutes on the clock. Does that make sense? Yeah. So different children have different needs at different points in their life, and even like there's a bit of a gap between my girls. You know, there's a 3-year gap. So obviously when Aisling was much smaller, she needed mom more just because effectively she was a baby. Do you know what I mean? So I was spending more time with her, and Isabel watching that was obviously getting jealous. So I had to, you know, keep explaining to her, she's a baby, babies need to be looked after. Do you know, and I kind of brought her into it like, this is what she needs. She needs a nap now, you know, she needs to be fed now, you know, I have to carry her, you know, we have to toilet train her, you know, all those things. So I guess she was learning probably about my parenting style as we went. But just to continue to explain that, and that can be hard, like when a new baby comes into a house and little jealousy seeps in, and there can be feelings from your older child that there's favouritism, but they don't understand the situation. So I would say take the time to explain the situation so the older child actually knows what's going on. Because if you just say, you know, you're in a rush, you're trying maybe to get baby fed or do whatever you want to do, like, you know, you can just kind of pass the buck on the older child and say, look, just sit down, mommy's busy, just give me 5 minutes. Do you know what I mean? And if all they're ever hearing is mommy's busy, then they're never going to come back to you when they actually do have problems. Do you know what I mean? So it's just taking that 5 minutes just to explain to her, look, I have to feed the baby. Babies need to be fed. They can't do it themselves. You're older. You can do it yourself. So off you go.
Your example is interesting because I kind of almost have the opposite problem where there's a similar age gap between my two girls, it's not the older one who feels put out by the attention being given to the younger one. It's actually the opposite, where anytime the older one is shown attention, the younger one just is quick to highlight it. Or, like, for example, the other day, the older one hurt themselves, hit their head, and obviously consoling her and telling her she'll be okay, and then the other one suddenly starts crying and has developed something on their knee that just wasn't there 3 seconds ago. Why, and it said, why are you showing them more attention and love than me? And I'm like, well, trying to explain. She's hurt now. I have to, if it were you that was hurt. And maybe that's not helping, because you're telling her if you were hurt as well, and you give you the time. So
and next thing they go out and hit their leg off something outside. We have that.
They have.
Oh, completely, Alan. We have that all the time as well. And I think that's just kind of growing up in a family, and that's totally normal. And can you imagine, like, years ago when there was loads of kids in a family, that kind of stuff would be happening all the time.
Can you imagine the Irish families of 7, 8, 9, 10 children? Screaming for your attention.
Exactly. Just open the door and off you go. That's kind of the way it was. But when that happens as well in our household, Alan, so we get a mix of both, and sometimes there can be even acting out, like you just said, and that's really common. Like, if they see one child looks like they're getting a bit preferred behaviour, the other one then can start acting out, like drawing on the walls, or doing something to get your attention. So that's why I was saying about it's the quality time that you're spending with the kids, rather than the minutes on the clock that you're spending with them. So think about, like, the activities that you're getting into. So if you are clashing with one of your kids, because probably you have the same personality, like, what are things that they're interested in, and then try and take an interest in it. Do you know what I mean? So, like, get involved. So if they just want to be colouring all day, or they just want to be reading a book with you, try and find those pockets of time where you can sit down and do that with them. Like, some days I'll just cover the table in newspaper and I'll take out all the paints. They love just painting, but they love it more when I sit down and do it with them. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, oh, I've set up the paints now, I can actually tidy the kitchen.
No, you can't.
No, you can't. So some days I do take just 5 or 10 minutes sitting down with them, and they're like, oh, I need help with this, or I need help with this. And they're looking for the praise, but they're looking for the enjoyment with mum as well, rather than just me pushing an activity on them and just leaving it up to them. They want me to get involved in those activities as well. So trying to make time to actually get involved with what they're interested in as well is really important. And I also think if you have opportunities to make one-to-one memories with your children as well, that's important. So you're developing it up. Whereas if one child is feeling left out, I'll be constantly reminding, well, these are the things you get to do with mom and dad, and these are all the things we do together as a family. Do you know what I mean? Because I don't feel you should be, like, segregating your kids off either, because you're a family unit. Like, so I do have to constantly remind them we're a family, and like
we all need to spend time together as well.
Yes, so we're a family unit. This is our family, and this is how we spend time together, and this is how we spend time separately. And sometimes Aisling will come with me to do little jobs around the house, because that's what she likes doing, where my older child is off reading a book while we're doing that. And then other times she'll come with me to go to the shop or do recycling or whatever else. And it swings and roundabouts as well. It can go between the two kids, but I think just have an open conversation about it. So if a child comes to you and says, oh, you treat such and such, my sister or brother, differently, don't ignore it. Just have the conversation, because I think if they're coming to you with those genuine feelings, I'd say try not to back them away too much, because otherwise the next time they have those feelings, they're just going to keep them to themselves, and then
that's not
be
good.
Little worries in their head. You know what I mean? So I would always say, get the worries out. Ask them what they're worried about. Ask them why they feel like you're feel like you've a favourite or whatever, and then discuss it. And just listen, and spend the time listening to them as well, and hear their concerns. And then you say, okay, thanks for telling me that. This is what
duly noted. This
is what actually happens.
No, I'm going to tell you now why you're wrong.
No, but I think you can say it in a good way. To be fair, even though parents feel or admit they have a favourite child, like I said, Alan, I think it's more that they have a deeper connection potentially with one child because they've more in common. And this will change as your child grows. Do you know what I mean? Because as your kids get into different things, as they become teenagers, whatever, those relationships are going to change as well. So I think at different times in a child's life, they're going to lean to one parent or the other, depending on their needs at the time. And that's totally normal.
Yeah, no, definitely so. And I'm sure there's a lot of parents listening now who weren't even aware that they may have been leaning more towards one child rather than the other, but maybe they're reassessing that. Great advice as ever. Petrina, we'll let you get back home because there's probably some painting to be done at the table. And not cleaning the house, painting. Petrina, thank you very much as always. Petrina O'Halloran there with us for Parenthood in Focus.